Good morning, everyone. I'm Shotade Olusegun. In this particular video, I want us to dissect the mysterious universe and mass-giving mechanism. Now, what I want you to know about formula of everything, which is this formula right here, is that this formula comprises of energy, time, and mass. So we're actually using this formula to depict relationship between time, energy, and mass. Now, those are the three major things that are needed for us to actually unravel the mystery of the universe. So in today's video, we're going to dissect the mystery of universe, and then we're going to go deep into the mass giving mechanism. We want to know the true nature of mass, and with that we'll be able to shed more on the mysterious nature of the universe. Now, this formula is so essential in revealing the whole secret. Well, it might not be the whole secret about the universe, but it's actually going to do the work, and then we'll be able to understand the universe the way we ought to understand. Now, one thing I want to actually emphasize on is that knowing the true nature of time is so essential. And by knowing the true nature of time, then we're able to actually explain what quantum gravity is, what gravity's nature is, what mass nature is, and then so many other things like that. So in this video, we're going to really dissect that and then go so deep into it. We will get the mechanism, by getting the mechanism of mass giving virtue, we'll be able to know how universe itself operates. And then we're going to even know the true nature of light itself. And then another thing we're going to know is that we're going to know the reason constancy is so essential. And then we're going to know, some deep secrets, because we know that electron can actually, give us light. We know that by having electromagnetic wave, we know we have the same light measure to be the light speed, and so we know that electromagnetism is the same thing as light. So we're going to look at why is it that even though the mass, electron, even though electron has mass, why is it that electron can actually be measured while in motion to be the same thing as the light speed? Because we know that everything that has mass cannot travel up to the speed of light. And for electron, in collaboration with magnetic wave, if electron can, be measured to be at the same speed with light, definitely it means that electron is actually, traveling at the speed of light. And so, is that possible? How could that be possible? We're going to actually dissect all this in the video. So this video is going to be so educative and insightful, and so you have to lock it down till the end for you to actually understand this, because we're going so deep. It has never been explained like this before, and that is why this particular video is so essential. Now, the first thing I want to talk about, I want us to quickly look at the nature of vacuum space. At a point in science, some scientists, they are so concerned about the nature of nothingness. They want to know if it is true that the whole universe emanated. They want to know if the whole universe emanated from nothingness. You understand? And as a result of that, where the first description of nothingness we have was described by Aristotle. So Aristotle said that there is no way and there is no visibility of nothingness. because it's more or less like there is a atmospheric pressure. You understand that we always fight against having the real nothingness. Now, there is another person that did an experiment. It's more or less like tricking the whole scientific community to believing that nothingness is visible. And what it did, the name of this particular scientist or this particular person is Evangelista Torricelli. Now, what did it do? What it did was, there is a particular tube, glass tube, and then what it did was it filled the tube with mercury, then covered the extreme end, probably maybe covered the top as well. You understand? Then it now put the tube, the glass tube filled with mercury, into a mercury bath, and then release the hand for the mercury to, escape. If you have that kind of a thing, you have actually, pushed away all the air that could be inside the glass tube. And so by releasing it, then the mercury uh, started coming down. But there is one amazing thing. When that mercury gets to a particular point, it stopped. And from that, uh, Evangelista said something. He said, it's more or less like there is atmospheric uh, pressure. You understand that it acts. We have the weight of mercury in one part, then the weight of air pressure. Air is being vacated from the glass tube already. So the space that we have that could be, tagged as nothingness is more or less like, the atmospheric pressure on our weight. And so he was forced to say that it's more or less like we're in the sea of atmospheric pressure. You understand? So there is one particular pressure that we're not actually aware of. So probably, I don't know what we could call that. Maybe we would call that suspension field or gravitational field. But basically, what I've discovered is that the constancy of light is the same thing that ensures the constancy of gravity. Then one thing I want us to observe is that, that once we are in the gravitational phase, it seems as if with as well, do not let me put it that way, let me put it the other way. So it's more or less like the constancy of gravity is the same for all, irrespective of weight. You understand? So basically, we can know that there is a kind of balance in the universe. And I define time as, apart from defining time as what I defined it to be in my previous video, it is also the balanced, it's something that affects the balanced motion of the universe, just the same way as it is the energy regulating force of the universe. So we're going to really go deep into time to know more about time, so as to be, able to explain the concept intuitively as it ought to be. So now let's dive into it. Well, there is one thing I like. I like to usually have diagram, because one of the things that makes me to actually not like mathematics is for the fact that is basically because of its abstraction. You understand, or abstract nature. Because when you are trying to balance equation, you tend to get one value from nowhere, get from other where you divide it by both sides and things like that, then you arrive at a particular solution. Things like that seem to me as arbitrary or something, I don't know. You understand? So because of the abstract nature of math, or the abstraction of mathematics, it's something that in the past pushed me away from getting to study mathematics the way it ought to be. So I don't like a kind of situation where we'll be just having, you know, fantasies and all that. So me, I like to actually come up with a practical illustration that we, drive home the points that I want to, talk about. So now, this diagram, this is time energy wave model. And basically, I've been using this model to explain, the reality of the universe. And today, we're going to actually use this to explain it thoroughly than before. And for you to get idea of what we're still going to to enjoy rather, to enjoy further in this video, I want us to come to this side. There is another package right here. There we have time energy wave model, and also here we have time energy wave model. You can see time trajectory and energy trajectory. But there is something so profound here. We have the location of the real classical mass worth, and then we have the location of the real mass worth of electron. So we're going to use this to explain, things, the happenings in the universe that are so fascinating. So now let's go back to the board so that we can start, from where we're supposed to start. So now, this thing, what we are trying to get here is that we want to get the mass giving mechanism of the universe. So now, this time energy wave model, we have time scaling relatively to energy. And as a result of that, anytime time scales wide, then energy will become low. And at this central point, we have low energy state. And this central point is where reality is. And in one of my past videos, I said that reality is at the present phase, and then you can see the present right here, because this point is a point where we have real uh, stability, but don't get it twisted. The stability we have here is as a result of spontaneous symmetry breaking. So if we were to dissect time for real, we know that time, by its nature, time time is not something that can stop. Time doesn't stop at any time. Time doesn't stop. See, I want to shed more light on time's nature, because for the fact that time is scaling relatively to energy, then that simply means that energy will have that virtue of not stopping as well. But basically, at this present phase, we have spontaneous symmetry breaking as a result of the fact that there are suspensions at energy level and at quantum level and classical level. And because of that constraint, then once that symmetric, which is by motion, symmetric nature of that constraint is broken, then we're going to have this brief stability. And at that point, we'll be able to get the reality. And so that is why at every present phase, there is so like brief, we usually have brief stability that can give us reality of the universe. And that is what we're going to actually, dive deep into. So now, we now know that, yes, by having that kind of relationship, then energy can be stretched to a point where it will be arbitrarily stable. And the arbitrary stability of energy is at the point, at the extreme edge of its constancy, which is at the low energy state right here. Now, don't forget that we have equilateral triangle. We have one for the past, which is this, and then we have another flipped one for the future. Now, the constancy of the light is so essential, because that is what maintains the range of speed that can actually give us the balanced motion of the universe. What do I mean by that? What I'm trying to say is, for instance, let's say we have a snapshot of pictures, and so we want a kind of transitions from those pictures in such a way that the pictures will tell story. We must have a a kind of constancy that we be within the range of what our eyes can capture, that will give it that smooth motion. And once we have that, then we have what is known as motion picture. So there is a particular range of speed that we can have that we smooth, that we smoothen out that transition effect in such a way that it will become something like motion for us. Now, if there is any slight increase to that or decrease to that, then it will result to fast motion or slow motion. So we need to know that constancy is very essential for us to have the smooth effect of time peregrination. And so we know that at quantum level we have this discrete nature at quantum level, and that is as a result of uh, introduction of slight mass worth into the breaking, break like as in break, so breaking effect uh of what we have in the past. So basically, relatively at quantum level, we know that this region is the quantum level, while this region is the classical level. Now, at this quantum level, we have, emergence of mass worth, and then we have emergence of wave. At classical level, we have emergence of mass formation, and then emergence of uh, particle. Because here, in the past phase, we have accumulation of mass, and that accumulation of mass is as a result of the mass worth that is being introduced from the singularity. We have a tiny mass worth that is being introduced. Now that mass worth is being decayed along this path, because uh, this path is actually moving towards the low energy state. So it is expanding the nature of cosmological space relative to time. Even though it is doing that, it is as well being contracted in such a way to generate radiation. And the effect of the radiation is what gives the mechanical momentum of mass accumulation at a classical level. So that is the system. Now, once we get to this point, this is the stable fixed point. Energy is being so stressed that it has it has no adequate energy to travel towards the trajectory of the future. And it is for that reason that additional energy must be introduced into the system for it to travel towards the singularity of the future. Then how do we get that additional energy? We get that now by using this formula of everything. Now I want us to understand something. This concept I'm trying to explain is so difficult, but I want to explain it in such a way that we'll be able to understand. We have this as strong conveying force, and then this 4m as weak conveying force. Now, if you look at all the four forces of the universe, fundamental forces of the universe, you see that the whole of the four, all the four forces are actually pointing to major two things. They are pointing to two things. They are pointing to strong and weak. Now, don't forget we have strong nuclear force, we have weak nuclear force. Those two forces are referring to strong then force. Strong then weak. Then we have gravitational force, which is weak. Then we have electromagnetic force, which is strong. So the all four are just pointing to two things: strong, weak, strong, weak. And it is for that fact that even by this expansion of the universe, we only have two things. We have that is why the operation at quantum level is different from the operation at classical level. So the operation at quantum level is actually conveying the mechanic. I mean, it's traveling via the strong conveying force. Why the classical level, the time trajectory is traveling through weak conveying force. Now, if we look at the whole thing, we then know that mass could serve as fuel for this operation. Now, mass is being decayed in order to have radiation to propel momentum, and the momentum we're talking about is a kind of momentum that facilitates mass convergence, or yes, mass convergence, or uh, that facilitates the mechanical system of mass convergence, you understand, which is at a classical level. So the whole thing that we need to know about the strong conveying force, which is time force traveling, which is that is the time force. Now there is another thing I want to briefly talk about, where you know that in that era there was a time in science where people, when they were trying to deal with the nature of nothingness, they realized that by, you know, by evacuating the air in that in the vacuum. So when you put the clock, alarm clock that can actually give you alarm, when you put it inside the vacuum, you will not be able to hear the sound of that clock. But you can still see through the vacuum to see that the mechanical system of getting the sound, that you still have a motion, but you can't hear the sound because the air that the sound will travel through is no more in the vacuum. So as a result of that, because they could see, you know, through the vacuum, they could still see inside the vacuum. So they believe that there is a particular substance or fluid in the universe that is, you know, carrying energy, and so they call it luminiferous ether. So when that was being measured by Edward Molly and Madison, or I don't know, I've forgotten the name of other scientists. When they did their experiment, they could not see any trait of ether. You understand? And as a result of that, they felt that the experiment was wrong. You understand? So though they got Nobel Prize, I think the Madison got Nobel Prize on that. You understand? But basically, you know, Einstein later, when he now worked on electromagnetic nature, he said probably there was no ether for light to travel in. You understand? So basically, it could just be that light has that capability to travel in the vacuum space without any additional conveying force. But basically, that, according to my discovery, that is not actually true, because energy is traveling through time. Energy is traveling through time. So the conveying energy, or the conveying force for time, for energy, is time. So is the time is the one that is scaling energy, that is, you know, regulating the intensity, and by that nature of regulating the intensity, probably increasing or reducing the intensity of energy, then we come about the nature of force. So basically, there is no way we talk about force without talking about the relationship between time and energy. And so now we have seen that energy travels in time, and so time is the conveying force of energy. So basically, time is faster than the speed of energy. Let's say we call that energy light. You understand? I call it energy because it could be any form of energy. It could be light energy. It could be maybe dark energy or whatever it is that you want to call. But basically, time travels faster than the speed of light, and that is why time is able to scale light. So light is being driven by time. And so now let's look at the nature of if we look at the nature of the Doppler effect. We know we have a Doppler effect where you could have red shift and then blue shift. You know that when you have red shift, it means that the light is traveling away from you, and then you could see that light will be stretched based on distance. And so if we're to dissect that, what is it that energy or the light is traveling relative to for it to be stretched? So that is time. And then what is it that energy is traveling relatively to that makes it to shrink in space? That is also time. So for energy to be able to shrink at all, energy must be traveling relatively to something, and what it travels relatively to is time. So now we need to understand that the relationship, which is time energy relationship, is so essential for us to get the reality of the universe. And so now the thing now, let's look at that spontaneous symmetry breaking. Now the effect that we have as time stopping is not that time is really stopping. Let me give you an example. You know that when an observer is observing an event towards the black hole, when that event or that particular object reaches the event horizon, the observer will see that particular object as being static. That is, it will be that object will stop, and so the observer will not see past that. But reality, the real reality of what is happening is that the object has really entered into the black hole. So how can we actually explain this kind of situation? It simply means that at the event horizon, there is spontaneous symmetry breaking. Now, what I mean by spontaneous symmetry breaking is that we have a brief stability as a result of time traveling beyond the limit, which is the time energy constraint. And so because time travels beyond to get the actual mass worth for the phase of energized phase, that is to get additional energy for the trajectory into the black hole, then time has made the observer to be disconnected from the further, which is the future uh, occurrences. I mean, no, from the future occurrence. You understand? So that person is still being stuck within the time energy wave constraint, which is what is observable within that limit. You understand? So by the effect of distance, the person is being deprived of what the reality is. Basically, the static nature of the object is reality, which is the present reality, the reality of spontaneous symmetry breaking. But the subsequent reality, which is the further reality into the black hole, that is what the observer is not uh, being able to observe. You understand? And so the static, which is the reality of that object, has become an illusion for the observer. And that is why we usually think that what we'll observe, probably anything related to the past, to the future, is nothing but a mere illusion. But we really have reality of all these things. You understand? So we don't just tag them illusion, because out of the illusion we have the reality. So what we call illusion to in its own way is a reality. So basically, I want us to understand that the nature of time, the nature of the past is the ordered state, while the nature of the future is the unordered state. And so the point where we have brief static momentum is the present phase. So all these phases are so real, and that is why time as well is real. So we cannot actually subject time to what clock can measure, because when the gears of clock, when they stop, when gears of clock, when they stop, that will not stop time. So we can't just justify that yes, when the gears of clock, when they stop, then time has stopped. No, because even clock itself that we use to measure time is subjective to the flow of time, because clock itself will be decayed and then time will still be running. So time is not subjective to our mind. Time is not subjective to clock. And that is why we could say that even for the astronaut that travels into the space, relative to our twin brother, we could say that that astronaut grew younger to the twin brother on Earth, which had grown older. You understand? So you can see that differences in aging, and that means that even time, that means that time influences biological clock. So time has power to influence biological clock. It has power to influence mechanical clock. So we shouldn't see time as being subjective to anything. So the operation of time is far beyond, and from the true nature of time, time is unstoppable. Like time doesn't stop at any point in time. So you can now see here that when we now have that static momentum at the present phase, you could see time traveling from where the weak conveying force is suspended down straight beyond this constraint of quantum realm into the higher dimension to get the real mass worth of electron. And that real mass worth of electron is injected back into the system. And because the mass worth is way bigger than the tiny space that we have here, then that mass worth quickly decay, and that energizes momentum towards the singularity of the future. Now, we're able to know that what we have here is so tiny by using this wave amplitude, which is 5.7 times 10 raised power minus 48. We put that inside our formula to get the mass worth of electron at arbitrary stable point. And what we get is 0.000000001423. That means that why electron is in motion, the mass worth of electron is so tiny. And from that, we could say that there is nothing like nothingness, because even at a point that's supposed to be nothing, at the point, at the stable, at the weak energy state, which supposed to be, the point where there is nothing, we still have something. We have tiny worth of electron. And so the real mass worth that we get from here, even by the time that gets into the system, and then it travels through this singularity, we'll still have tiny mass worth of electrons. So there is no way we can get nothingness in the vacuum space. So there is no way we can get nothingness in the vacuum space. And so that is what we have by in that Evangelista Torricelli's experiment. You see that by trying to flush out the what is it called, mercury, by trying to flush out the mercury from the glass tube, the mercury could not be completely flushed out. So we have a portion for the mercury, and then we have the above portion, which is termed as empty, which is the vacuum space. So it means that we have our own width in this universe, and there is there is atmospherical, or let me rather say, there is atmospheric pressure as well, which is what we have above. So it's more or less like we're in the sea of that. We are in the sea of what should I call it? I don't know, maybe I should call it suspension field or gravitational field. So we're in the field of that gravitational field. So we're going to really see more of that in the other section. So basically, now when we get to this gravitational phase, we see that right from having mass accumulation, which is what we have in the past, then we now get to the another phase where we have decaying of mass. Now, there is something I want us to really understand. For us to know more about the nature of light, we can see that, okay, I will use that other diagram to explain that. Let's come to this side. Now, this is the image that we have, and it is still time energy wave model. So this is the trajectory of time, and this is the trajectory of energy. Now here we want to see the true nature of mass worth. Now, by looking at this is the trajectory of light or energy, and then we see that energy is going towards the low energy state. So by having this triangle, that is the constancy of light. And then we have another constancy right here. I don't know, maybe we'll call that gravitational constancy, which is the ones that travels into the classical realm. We have classical realm here, we have quantum realm here. So now what I want us to know is that the nature of light is to get rid of mass worth. Light is inversely related to mass. And when you look at, here, what we have here will be ordered. Now, that ordered thing is being decayed along this trajectory. And then, even as light by its mechanism is decaying mass worth in order to be so light, extremely light, or being in a state where it will have no mass based on what we have as a mediating factor of light, which is a photon. So we say photon is massless. That's what we believe. But when you look at the operation of this energy now, you see that it's decaying mass worth, or rather, let me say it's pushing away mass worth. You understand? And so when it gets to the point where energy is so low that we could say, yes, we have, convergence of mass, you can see that the mass worth of electron that we now get is so tiny, very, very tiny. But the real mass worth of electron is outside time energy wave constraint. Now you can see that light by its own operation has nothing, it doesn't want to have anything to do with mass. So now when we now look at the classical realm, we see that the virtue of light being able to generate radiation is to support a mechanical system of mass convergence at classical realm. So now you can see that as this is radiating it is using that heat to support the mechanical system of mass convergence at this classical realm. So now mass here at this classical realm, we are having accumulation of mass. And even though mass could be so close to the to time trajectory, mass also is inversely related to time, but time can still accommodate mass than light. So you see that when that mass accumulation gets to this point, we say that it is being suspended to time wave trajectory, just as this tiny mass worth of electron is being suspended to the energy's trajectory. So now we know the relationship of time to energy is inverse. You understand? And basically, this is the reason why we have, expansion in the universe and then have contraction in the universe. So basically, let us get back to our other. Now, I want to use this formula of everything to explain, you know, uh, to explain some things. So the way we use this formula of everything is by just using what we know to get what we don't know. Now, take for instance, let's say we know what electron mass is, which is 9.109 times 10 raised power minus 31. We know that is the mass worth of electron. Now, if we put this value in the place of this m, then we're going to get the counterpart, which is the classical mass worth, which is 2,277,250,000 kilograms. Now we have this mass worth in kilogram. Now, from this, we have used what we know, which is the mass worth of electron, to get what we don't know, which is the corresponding classical mass worth. Okay, so now, if we now use this mass worth, if we now put this mass worth in the place of m here and m here to reconfirm this electron mass, we will discover that the solution we get will be having this wave amplitude, which is approximately 5.7 times 10 raised power. You understand? So we just say we have a couple of zeros. Then the worth of this weak conveying force will be suspended to it, which is 9,109, and then we have more zeros. Now at the 32nd position, we have this suspension. For us to now get to a quantum realm, because the suspension is right here, so notice that there is no point in this value. We have 9,109. We have 9,109. That's what we have. There is no point in the value. By that, we know that the suspension is at classical level. You understand? And so this is the classical wave amplitude, which is 5.7 times 10 raised power 48, not minus. So now from that, we could draw this equilateral triangle, because we know that the strong conveying force has generated this value relatively to the weak conveying force. So the suspension will travel up like this. It can't just be horizontal like that. So from there, we are able to get the constancy of a gravitational field, or constancy of suspension field, whatever it is that we might be convenient to call it. So we have the constancy right there. And now for us to now move from the classical realm to quantum realm, we will need to manually annihilate the zeros, the suspended zeros, all the zeros. And by annihilating the zeros, we're going to have in standard form 9.109 times 10 raised power. Guess what we have? Raised power minus 32 instead of 31. Raised power minus 32 instead of. So why is it that, why are we having such dynamics in mass formation at quantum level? We're having that because of this suspension. Now time we have to travel beyond, because time, even when there is no energy, at the point where energy is deemed to be zero, there is still energy for time. And that is why I said time is faster than the speed of light. So now energy can still travel beyond the constraint, and because it's traveling beyond the boundary, then there will be a lot of radiation, so there will be mass loss. And so we reconfirm but instead of reconfirming the actual mass worth, we have a unique value, which is 9.109 times 10 raised power minus 32. Now, what is the usefulness of that? This formula of everything, which I call FOE, formula of everything. This formula of everything is so powerful that it fits back on itself. Now, whatever value you input, you can actually use the output of that value as input again to get more information. And as a result of that, anytime you do that, you get unique value. And so that dynamics of mass formation, I have tagged that to be free will. So by having that dynamic mass formation, it's actually pointing to the future phase, which is the phase of mass decaying. And then it gives us that solution of how mass is decaying. You understand? So this quantum level is where we have reality, and that can actually explain why energy usually go towards the low energy state. You understand? So and we can see why the trajectory from classical realm is to quantum realm, because that is the flow of time. So that is where the reality is, and we can see that by having a tiny part of electron in the system, that will connect to the real mass world, and as a result of that, that will be injected back into the system. So we liken that operation, we liken that to the popping in of virtual particles and then popping out of virtual particles. So we can see that it's a big solution for something that we couldn't explain before. So now let's get back to this place. There's something I now want to say concerning, yes, I've explained what the nature of light is. So I want to explain the nature of mass worth. Now, by trying to get the nature of mass worth, then we're able to know more about the universe. Now, I said something before about Evangelistas' experiment, that is more or less like we have atmospheric pressure above us. So now, when you look at this, you see that by using the mass worth of electron in the formula of everything, we have a field, probably let's say suspension. In this phase, we have suspension field, which is far more than the real mass worth. So the electron classical mass worth is this value. So where will it be in this diagram? This is its place. We can see that there. Now we see that we have this whole place. We can liken this whole place, free space here, we can liken that to gravitational field. Don't forget that down here we're going to have electromagnetic field. You understand? So now, because electromagnetic field is pushing away mass worth, we have the real mass worth of electron to be outside the system. So it is being pushed away completely from the system. So electromagnetic field will have to be so light for it to have the necessary kinetic movement. And that is why we could see that kinetic movement usually get converted to potential worth, which is what we have at the classical realm. So now, right here, we have the real mass worth of electrons classical worth, which is here. So this can be actually likened to our own weight in the universe. So time is actually having additional field that generates higher mass worth. We can call this arbitrary mass worth. So there is higher mass worth for us to have balanced motion in the universe. So this is being scaled in such a way that our weight is being balanced with the weight of the arbitrary mass worth for us to have balanced motion in the universe. And that is why we could be on the earth stable without experiencing that the earth is actually moving, because we are running at the constant speed of the earth. So it is being balanced out for us. So little wonder the effect, like the constancy of gravity, works the same on every object, irrespective of uh, their weight, or irrespective of their weight. You understand? So basically, what that means is that the constancy effect of gravity in vacuum, when there is no introduction of air, is the same for all. So that is the virtue of the balanced motion in the universe. And then we can see that here. Now, this at what is being known as atmospheric pressure in that Torricelli's experiment is is the balance scale, is the balance scale relative to uh, our own weight. So that is what gives us the balance motion that we have. And so now let's now dissect this region, the quantum region. Because at quantum region, we have momentum that supports the mechanical mass formation of the classical region. So this electromagnetic field that we have here is pushing away mass. And so we can see that that has even generated extension of the mass beyond the time energy wave model. And when uh, even though within the system we have so very tiny mass worth, which is what we have here, we know that that is, the difference that we have between the, what is it called, sea of electron or the real electron. So that is the plus that we have that could lead to, gigantic mass formation. So even though this real mass worth is injected into the system and it quickly decays, just as we have in the case of popping in and popping out of virtual particles, you understand? So we're still going to always have tiny mass worth in the universe. So now, what is obtainable at quantum level is different from what is obtainable at classical level, and that is why the wave collapse will always produce tiny mass worth. You understand? It will always produce tiny mass worth, and that has actually explained the 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 loss of antimatter that we have in the universe. So the tiny mass worth is enough to actually create the uh, the various mass worth we have in the universe today. So basically, that is that. So now we know the nature of light. We know that light decays mass worth, and as a result of that, it converts potential energy to momentum or to kinetic energy. You understand? So that is the nature of electromagnetic field. You understand? And so the nature of gravitational field, the nature of that is, but basically we shouldn't forget that this is the gravitational phase. So what we have in the gravitational phase is the decaying of mass. You understand? But we have the constancy, reducing the momentum such that we have prolonged system. So just as we know that when we have the light, light energy, when we have it in the vacuum space, it prolongs its duration, its operation, than to let it get exposed to air. So when we have introduction of air, that will quickly burn out the energy, the light energy. And so we see that the vacuum state is the default state of the universe. It is the default state of the universe. So it might not be completely empty, but it is the default space of the universe. So basically, from this analogy now, we know that there are three major relationships that we must have in the universe. And the three major relationships will be relationship of time to energy, relationship of time to mass, relationship of mass to energy. Now, those are the three, and that is why I have used chain rule in differential calculus to come about and to develop this formula of everything. So I use differential calculus in order to use chain rule, and by using chain rule, I have that integration of time, energy, and mass, and then I use E equals mc squared, which is the value that I use to, you know, to have that equivalence of energy, mass energy equivalence. You understand? So mass could be quickly converted to energy, and energy could be quickly converted to mass. So it works like that. So this formula is so powerful. And then another thing I want to say is, I want to remember. Yes. So now, when you look at this formula, like, yes, I want to quickly talk more about the, what is it called, relativistic wave equation that was developed by Dirac. Was it relativistic quantum wave formula? Yes, that was derived. It was developed by Dirac, and from Dirac's analogy, we were able to get the fact that there is, antimatter or antiparticle or antimatter of electron, which is positron. You understand? So, and then from his analogy, we are able to know that the vacuum space is not as really empty as we thought it might be. You understand? Because the vacuum state has activities. So since time is unstoppable, time cannot stop. There will still be, activities, and as a result of that, the vacuum state cannot be termed as empty, like a state that is completely empty. So now, what I now want to talk about it is, when you look at the Schrodinger wave, when you look at that wave, it has first order of time derivative, while the space is second order derivative. Now you can see that kind of discontinuity in that particular wave, and that is why in my research publication you could see that I model, let me rather say, I model that relativistic quantum wave by using Schrodinger wave, then use the normal EMC squared, which is putting the momentum as well. You understand? I have the mass there, I have the momentum, it's combination of momentum and mass. So by using that, I was able to, get uh the flaw, in the wave equation. What I mean by flaw is that the flaw that we have there is something that would not enable us to actually affect the unification of classical mechanics to quantum mechanics. So when I use my own model, when I use it, I didn't use imaginary number, I didn't use a Euler formula, I didn't use anything of such, I didn't even use renormalization. You understand? Just for me to have the clear picture of what is happening. And by the time I reached the extreme end, I realized that at the both sides, there is a particular side in the equation that is that has infinity, and the other side of the equation has arbitrary value, not really infinity as such. And as a result of that, we cannot use that kind of solution to unify quantum mechanics to classical mechanics. You understand? Now, what Dirac did, Dirac did not square the E equal, it did not square the solution we have in order not to have Klein what Klein had in his own equation. In order not to have that, it didn't use square. It rather used a matrix so as to maintain that first order derivative of time, and then have a first order derivative in space. You understand? Unlike what Klein has in the Klein-Golden equation, because what Klein did was he actually square uh, the what is it called, the E equals mc squared uh, formula. You understand? In order to have that solution that could be used with what is it called, Schrodinger wave equation. You understand? And by doing that, he has actually moved that first order time derivative in the Schrodinger wave equation. It has moved it to second order derivative, and so he had in his own equation here, I think he had second order derivative then in time and second order derivative in space. So now what Dirac did was so powerful. He had to use what is it called, matrix. In fact he had to use 4 by 4 matrix in order to get that first order derivative in time, then first order derivative uh, in space. And by doing that, he was actually trying to model this time energy wave uh, model. He was trying to model it. He was trying to model the expansion as it ought to be. Now, I have said it in one of my videos that the marriage of time to space in Einstein's the merging of time to space by Einstein was wrong, or rather let me say it's wrong, because we still have that merging till this time. You understand? So the merging is so wrong because time will never relativize space. So time only relativizes uh, energy, and we can see the flexibility by having time energy relationship, and that has resulted to dynamics in space as we have it in this time energy wave model. So basically that is that about this formula. And then another issue is that for you to actually cross from classical realm to quantum realm, it's something that has to be done manually because of the asymmetric nature, which is you have one part decaying mass, then you have other mass, other part accumulating mass. So by nature, they are not symmetric. They are only symmetric by the constancy effect, which is the moment, which is by motion. And even by getting here, you see that we have the same thing. So the constancy, which is the line that we have in this equilateral triangle, the constancy has to be maintained. And I've explained the essence of that. And then another thing you need to know is that the trajectory of energy to time is to expand in the past phase. So that is the phase where you have mass accumulation at classical realm relative to mass decaying at quantum realm. Now, when we now get to gravitational phase here, what do we have? The trajectory of energy is towards the trajectory of time. And as a result of that, we have entered the phase which is energy is being energized. So we have additional energy that energizes the momentum of energy towards the future singularity. And now you can see that what is it called? The trajectory, because the trajectory has changed. And then here we have decaying of mass. And here we have mass accumulation. You can see that the operation too. What I'm trying to say is that if you look at this past phase, if you compare it to this future phase, they are asymmetric by nature, but symmetric by motion. So the asymmetric nature is that this phase is accumulating mass while this phase is decaying mass. Even if you now look it from up down, this is the classical realm, this is the quantum realm. Now here you have the accumulation of mass and here you have the decaying of mass. So by nature, the whole thing is not is asymmetric. So now let's get to this point. I quickly want to explain one phenomenon in the universe. Here we have one suspension here, we have another suspension here. So this is going to be brief. I want this video to be short. Now because we have now the reason we have suspension here is for the fact that we have suspension here at the present phase. Now look at how the present is written here. It is written as, you see, I used two color, black and red. So the present is the instant combination of the past and the present, and that is the point of spontaneous symmetry breaking. It is the point that feels like time is stopped, but in real fact time has never been stopped at any point. But what we have there is that we have the breaking of that symmetric nature of motion, and that is being termed, it is being visualized as a static transition, as a static transition. Now I want to, since we have, by our explanation at the present phase, because now this present phase could still be likened to the event horizon, and this is our black hole, and this is the evolutionary expansion, you understand? So now since we have suspension at the present phase, then we're going to have suspension in the black hole and then have suspension in the evolutionary expansion. And so now here we have real mass worth, which is the whole trajectory of time is to connect to the real mass worth of electron. So definitely it means that there is part of electron, which is what we have here, which is this tiny mass worth, is what connects us to the real mass worth. So definitely the present will be the combination of the past and the future, because this present must also be connected to the future and the past, and that is why we have that. So now the suspension we have here, what is this suspension? This is evolutionary expansion phase. So we have inflationary suspension there. Inflationary, there is a point in that expanding phase where we have inflation, and that point is a point where the suspension cannot withstand the expansion, and as a result of that we have a very drastic expanding phase there, you understand? But how can we liken that to the expansion we have here? To the suspension we have here. The suspension we have here is the suspension that we could call neutron stars suspension. Neutron star suspension is when you have big star, when you have it being decayed, it will be decayed to a point, to a neutron star. So when it gets to that neutron star, that is the phase where the neutron star will be struggling against the compression. So but we have time and energy crushing that what is it called, neutron star. So definitely we could have a kind of implosion rather than explosion. To me, I think in this phase we should have implosion. That means that time and energy will crush this neutron star beyond what it could resist, and so there we will have very rapid gravitational force here. So definitely in the black hole we have a suspension, and also in the evolutionary phase we have a suspension. So the inflation and the neutron star suspensions, we can call them the suspensions we have that we have. So now you can see that this whole thing has explained the entirety of the universe and the reality about the universe. So that is that. So I believe this video is quite informative and insightful. If so, if you really like the video for real, make sure you like the video by clicking the like button. Then it is very essential for you to subscribe to this channel. You can see that what we have been discussing are novel discoveries. You understand what we have been discussing, saying all this while, they are novel discoveries. So I know you would want to see more of this video. So for you to have that privilege, that chance, the opportunity of getting more videos, the subsequent videos, then make sure you subscribe to this channel. Then don't hesitate to share this video and other videos with your friends. We want this to travel as fast as possible so that we can have the needed advancement in science and technology. You understand? So this is a novel discovery. So I'm going to put link to my research publication in the description below, so anybody can get the article, the published article, to work more on this thing. Now, basically, what I want to say right now is that I give all the glory to Almighty God. Now, I want to ask you something, that if you too think about all these things I've been saying, in your mind, can you think it's something that one can actually, because one thing is to have a discovery, the other thing is to be able to interpret it the way it ought to be. And when you look at the whole thing, you can see the hand of Almighty God in this particular thing, which is um, it is God all through. It is Almighty God all through. You understand? So basically, what I'm trying to say is that there is no way we can. If you look at this analogy, what I'm saying is, we human as we are connected to the source, and the source is the Almighty God. You understand? And just as the same thing, I mean, just as the electron, the tiny worth of electron is connected to the real mass worth of electron outside the time energy wave model, that is the same way we are connected to Almighty God. And so for us to get real fact about the universe, we must, get back to the source, get connected to Almighty God. And if we do the three things that God wants us to do, then He will reveal the secret, like the secret that we need to know to us. You understand? And those three things are: fear God, which is number one; obey God, which is number two; then honor God in everything you do. So, as you already know, I'm a God-made scientist, so I can say it anyway. I don't see it as my power to unravel the mysterious happenings in the universe. It is by God's grace. So God bless you as you believe in Almighty God as well. Thank you.